I am really excited. I was telling the folks on the call this morning as we were getting ready to start that this is, oh, I don't know, it's probably the fourth or fifth time that I've given this talk, and each time I update it because, of course, things are changing. And I'm really excited about some of the changes that I've made today. So I hope that you find this really helpful. Okay. So as we get started, there are some goals that I've got for you. I really like to make my presentations relevant and practical. And so a few things that, that I'd like for you to come away with today. First, marketing is so important now more than ever. And if you've ever been at an MBA meeting with me, I kind of get on my soapbox and talk about how important marketing is. And when the next downturn happens, you need to be paying attention. And, you know, this is the next downturn. This is the thing that I believe, and I hope you come away from this believing that marketing is critical right now. Also, I want you to understand how important it is and what to do about standing out from the competition. You need to have that core difference, as we call it. And finally, I want you to come away from this being ready to take some action. I know it's so easy to feel overwhelmed and feel like that deer in the headlights, but I really want you to kind of push through that. And so what I've done here today is I've taken a lot of what's available for marketing for the building industry and specifically remodelers, and I've filtered it through, and I've put together things that you can do right now. And even if you're not a remodeling contractor, there are a lot of key nuggets that I've heard from people that they've taken away. So I encourage you to take notes, and let's get this going. So just want to talk about 2008 versus today. Back in 2008, reputation was critical. I worked with one of my first clients in my coaching practice, or not my coaching, my consulting practice, was an MBA member who's a tile subcontractor, and he was riding out the recession then with basically based on his reputation. And in the research that I did, that was most important then, but now your total online presence is important, how people find you, what they find, that you can't ignore that anymore. Now, of course, marketing is far more complex than it was back in 2008, and everything's more developed. In addition, you know, then, yeah, we were digital already, but now, you know, we're virtual, cloud-based, work from home, video, we are always connected. And finally, the consumer has much higher expectations for all of us who are in business than they did in, you know, 10 years ago. So I wanted to just share this quote. Warren Buffett said this when he was talking to a group of investors about using borrowed money to make investments. But what I really like is the second part of this. But no one can tell you when these will happen. The light can at any time go from green to red without pausing at yellow. And that's basically, it's kind of exactly what happened to us in March. You know, we may have been following it from January, like I was here in the Seattle area, but boy, that rug was pulled out from under us. So this is one of the slides that I always have to update. So we're in this new time. You know, we're in for the long haul. You know, better have your masks, you know, have multiple masks. We're going to be doing that for a long time. There are heavy restrictions in California. You guys are sliding backwards. There's supply chain issues. I just read a great blog post about how cabinet makers are having a particularly difficult time, and many have gone bankrupt. And the supply chain issues, if you've got to really pay attention, and you've got these different issues that present themselves in this time. So managing your projects, your client expectations are difficult. And so what can you do to market and really thrive in these times? So as we get into this, there's some themes that I'm seeing in marketing, and I updated these too. Communication is one that was, you know, one of the first things that I heard when I started doing research in preparation for my first webinar on this topic in early May. And it's still most important because the thing is that the rules have changed. How you do projects have changed, and there's new processes and procedures. There's you know, the PPE and all of that, and people need to know what you're doing. So you need to communicate that. One of the best things in doing research, talking to some members prior to doing this webinar, one of the things that came up in a conversation was the importance of getting everybody on the same team, especially as these wrenches get thrown in and timelines go to pieces. Being on the same team with your client and having them, well, actually the key thing is having them understand that you're all on the same team. Really takes some good communication, and that's most important. Setting expectations, working with timelines, and being flexible is critical. So in addition, the next thing is disruption. Everything is disrupted right now, and even consumer behavior, as we've seen. There was a time when nobody was doing anything, then people were making calls and doing research, and you've got to understand what the clients are, or what your prospective clients are up to, and what concerns they have, and we'll get into more of that later. The next theme that I'm seeing in marketing is still let people come to you. That's the inbound marketing. And remember that each customer journey to doing a project with you or working with you is unique. There's so much work, so much research that goes on online before they even pick up the phone, or fill out a form to talk to you. So you need to be aware of that and make sure that you have resources so that you can meet them wherever they are in the buying cycle. And finally, the last one is that companies are concerned. This is one that I just added. We know that 2020 is different than anything we've ever experienced, and companies are getting a little worried and they're taking action. So now it's more important than ever. And so companies are being very active, or starting to be much more active. Okay, so here are 9 reasons you can't ignore marketing. I did these in 3 different slides. It really is time for you to give marketing the time and the budget that it needs. So here are 9 reasons that I've come up with why you have to pay attention to marketing now. So first of all, you need to stay top of mind. Even if you don't see people signing contracts right now, you need to be the one that when they're ready to, they're going to be calling you or reaching out to you. Uncertainty means more communication. We talked about that, and marketing really is about communication and reaching your prospective clients. There are opportunities that are available during these times. You have to find what they are and take advantage of those. And hopefully I'll uncover some of those for you. I'm hoping that you start thinking of what I'm presenting in terms of your marketing and your company and what you're doing. And that you work through some of those and look for those opportunities. Remember that marketing is not just short term, like turn something on and it's going. It's a long-term play. There's some things that are quick, but there are a lot of things that take time to build and to get momentum with. So now is the time to do it. Online presence, like I mentioned, how people find you online is critical. It's not just your online presence is not just your website. It's when people do a Google search, what do they find? Do they find your house profile? Do they find your Google My Business? Do they find you on Thumbtack or Angie's List or all these places? Those are part of your online presence. And you have to pay attention to that, because what Google and the other search engines do is the more these dots are connected, the higher they will rank you in search. And of course, we all know their algorithms are very, private and convoluted, but the more you can have your online presence buttoned up, the higher you can rank. Digital and virtual tools are changing the way that we work with our clients. I mean, things are virtual now, and you probably are having virtual meetings. Marketing is also part of that, and you can use those new procedures and tell your clients and prospective clients what you're doing. Next, as I mentioned, each customer journey is unique, and so you don't know exactly where somebody will have been when they find you, or where they will, what's that last, not tipping point, but what's that last thing that makes them want to contact you? Pay attention to those. With marketing, you can't control everything and what's going going on in the business, but if you pay attention and actually get active in your marketing, you can be less affected by all these variables that are just kind of getting bombarded and thrown at us every day. And that can give you, I think, a little bit of a sense of control and a chance to breathe a little bit. And finally, your competition is likely doing some of these things. They're paying attention to their marketing. There are fewer people who are just sitting back and relying on referrals. And so you can't ignore marketing. And then finally, I didn't add this one, but it's kind of obvious. The companies that back off marketing during difficult times have a much harder time getting back up to speed. And another thing is the best time, I heard somebody yesterday, I think on a webinar somewhere, say the best time to go for a loan at a bank is when you've got a lot of business. And that's true now. One of the things that came to mind when the person said that was, for example, project photos. If you may not feel like you can allocate some money to photograph all the projects that you'd like to. However, you and I both know that in a year or two, if you have fewer projects, that's fewer projects that you can photograph. Last year's a project that you do today, you can't easily photograph that next year. So take advantage of marketing now. Okay, moving on. This quote from Sun Tzu from The Art of War is kind of sums up the way I think about marketing. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, and tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. I'm not going to dive into that too much. You can think about that. And remember, by the way, you get all the slides. You can download these and print them, and you'll get a link at the end. But this idea of strategy before tactics really means that you take the time to plan not just what you're going to do, but who your ideal client is, what your vision is for your company, what that message is that's going to set you apart from your competition. And you're going to look at all your content that you've got from written content to photos, etc. And then what you do is you're going to take and map tactics, the things that you do for marketing, to the customer journey, so that you have some touch points at every part along, or every little point along the way. You don't want anybody to not, basically to drop off and not know what to do next. That's why you have, say, a form on your website, contact us, things like that. And as Brad mentioned, I've been a duct tape marketing consultant since 2010, and I use their methodology with all my clients. And this idea of strategy before tactics is why I decided to actually become a licensed consultant with them. So I want you to buy into this idea of planning before you actually just go off and spend money. So key thing here, I'm not going to dive in too deep to the strategy, but the key thing is to differentiate yourself from your competition. You don't want to have to compete on price, because basically if somebody looks at you and another company, if they don't know what makes you special, they're going to go, oh, well, this one costs less, I guess I'll go with them. They'll do that sometimes, maybe not always, but so how do you do that? First, I want to share how you don't do it. So these are things that I often see when I'm looking at websites, and I look at a ton of websites as I am, coaching and getting ready for these webinars. So what not to do. If you're the most trusted, whatever it is in whatever city, that's so subjective. And for me, quite honestly, my eyes roll when I see something like that. Another subjective thing is saying that we're the best. Better Business Bureau accredited. Maybe it's, I don't know if any of you remember that game where it was like, don't spill the beans, but it's like another bean. Maybe that's a bean that goes on to the top of the game, and maybe that makes a difference, but that doesn't make you stand out. We've been in business since 1925, great, but that doesn't help me. Or we're the third generation, or certifications. A lot of the national organizations have different certifications, and while those are helpful in working with clients, they don't necessarily make somebody want to work with you, and they don't necessarily set you apart. And this is one that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. No job too big or too small. Please don't try to be everything to everybody. And that's a particular it's something that there's a pull to it in times that are slower. Now you may need to take on different projects, and we'll talk about that, but please don't say that you're everything to everybody. Okay, so some ways that you can differentiate. First of all, chances are it's your process. It's the way that you do things. Because quite honestly, the expectation when somebody hires you, if you're a contractor, is that you're going to build a really good house, or you're going to build a quality product. And but it's the way that you do it that makes you stand out. And so one thing, I'm going to jump down, look at your reviews and ask your clients. Those are things that you can do to find out what people appreciate about you. And then finally, if you niche, I know there are companies that niche in, ADUs or hillside homes, things like that. Those are differentiators. And then it's probably a combination of that with the way that you do business. So hopefully you get some ideas. Don't worry if this isn't if you can't figure this out. Companies pay a lot of money for marketing strategy, but I wanted to give you a way that you can start thinking about that. But I don't expect you to figure this out, while we're on this webinar. Take some time, buy the duct tape marketing book, set up a call with me, and we can talk about this. I mentioned sell on value, not price. Set yourself apart with your messaging. And key thing is, if somebody values what makes you different, what sets you apart, they're willing to pay more. And then you wouldn't have to drop your prices, which right now you can't afford to anyway. So think about those things. Okay, moving on. Here are 10 things that you can do right now. We're going to go into these in more detail, so I'm not going to read through these. You can skim them. And these are things that you can do without tackling that strategy element. That is kind of a big thing to tackle. But here are things that you can do, and you don't have to hire somebody to do these. A lot of these things, most of these things you can do in-house. Okay, so the first one is to strengthen your online presence. And here are different ways you can do it. I don't know if you know this, but your Google My Business profile is the #1 SEO tool for small businesses. When I realized that, I was so excited. I posted a lot of photos to Google My Business, and I know this tool really well and have spent time. I actually have a webinar on it, but you can totally complete and optimize your Google My Business profile. And there you can go to my YouTube channel. I've got a webinar on that one that I did. Key thing is get into the routine of getting onto Google My Business, say on a weekly basis. Just put a little note in your calendar, log in, and check how things are going, especially with reviews. You want to confirm your NAP, which is your name, address, and phone, and that it's formatted in the right way on your website, so that, again, Google can make those connections, all connecting all the dots to make sure that you are the company. When somebody looks for your company, they're going to find you. Directory listings are another thing. Those include associations, chambers, review sites like Angie's List. Even if you don't pay Yelp or Angie's List, those are part of your online presence, and you need to pay attention to those. And especially if you've moved your office, they probably need some cleanup. And there are services that do this. You don't have to pay a monthly service. There are companies that actually do this, and then there are consultants also that do it. And it's something you probably don't want to tackle on your own, but it can be done. And then you want to review your website, because your website is part of your online presence as well, but we're going to get more into that later. Okay, number 2, which is auditing your current marketing. It's really important to know where you are right now. And here are 3 ways that you can do it. Or, well, the first way, list everything that you're doing for marketing and mark down the cost and any details about it, when it expires, whatever it is. And by the way, membership in the MBA is part of marketing. And so, include that in your marketing. It's, everything, just think about everything that you do to spend money. That's not related to actually running the business. It very well could be marketing. Evaluate then the return on investment for that marketing. Now, chances are you probably aren't already doing that, but think about it. How can you evaluate the value of, say, an ad in Marin Magazine? or spending, $500 a month on house for one of the categories or more. You need to be tracking when you get phone calls. Where are the people finding you? Where are they going before they pick up the phone? And then what you need to do is you need to make changes. So even if you aren't actually measuring your marketing, just the act of auditing what you currently got and putting down the costs, you're actually developing a marketing budget. I know a lot of small companies don't have a formal budget, but this will get you started, and it gets you kind of taking a step back and seeing all of your marketing. Okay, so obviously COVID-19, there are some amazing resources that you can use to actually create a dedicated page on your website. And what I want to see is a banner at the top of it. And that's something that you're going to have to get your web developer to do. But first, what you can probably do on your own is create the page. And hopefully you have the ability to, and you should have the ability to edit your website so that you can add a page. And then you need to share this information that you have about how your processes have changed with COVID-19. Share it with clients. You may want to not only have a website page or web page, but also say PDF resources. Send out an email to, if you send out newsletters, what you're doing. The key thing is to address homeowners' concerns and update these regularly. I want to let you know that the MBA has some amazing resources. Here's the link. It's so easy to find on the MBA webpage. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with what our Marin Builders Association has put together as resources to create these resources for your company. So click around. There's a lot residing right behind some links in here. And there are links to external resources. Definitely check these out. Start there. Now, it's important to pay attention to what homeowners' concerns are. There are new concerns, and you need to be aware of them. I've put together a partial list. I know that there are more, and I know that your experience may show different things than I've got here. But obviously, homeowners are concerned with safety. They want to make sure that you're going to keep not only the job site and their family safe, but also your staff, things like that. They're concerned about timing. We all hear it. What's happening? Things are slow. Bottlenecks elsewhere. Shutdowns have affected supply chains, as well as the regulations with all the PPE and social distancing. Those are concerns of clients. Obviously, you're working through all of those, but also with prospective clients. They need to know what what the timing might be. They may not know that there are going to be some rising costs. They may have accepted that. They may be looking for a deal because the way they see it is that the market is slowing. So therefore, demand should be down. So their price should be down. But, they might actually perceive that costs are rising. You need to understand those concerns and expectations there too, if they think that the price, that they're going to get a deal. And finally, there's the uncertainty. We don't know what the future is going to hold, and there might be market fluctuations that affect their funding for this project, or they might be concerned about employment. So the more you understand your prospective clients and homeowners, the better off you'll be. And how can you basically respond to these? Communicate and set expectations. I don't want to go through every single word on here, but here's one. The second one. Are you now using Zoom that you didn't use before, or having that initial consultation online? That should be communicated on your website. Loom, if you're not using Loom, look it up. It's a cool tool where you can actually record. This one's, it's free. I've never paid for it, but you can create a custom video walking through some options. Say you're looking at different, if you're designing something and there's A and B and you have them laid out, you can hold them up. You can say, hey, Joe and Sue, here, take a look at these two. I like this one because of this. And then you basically record that, and then you send it off in an email, and they click the link, and you don't have to spend as much time writing a response or, writing an email. And it's a great way to communicate. If you're using a tool like Builder Trend or Co-Construct, and you've started using more of the features of that that are client facing, make sure you share those. There might be other tools as well. You know, what changes to projects are people likely to see if they work with you? You know, what people anticipate might not be what you're doing now. You know, we talked about the COVID response page. We talked earlier about being on the same team and being flexible. You know, part of this, it's all about communication, and communicate what you're doing now that might be different, and make sure that your website reflects that. Okay, moving on. Number 4 is competitive research. You know, look at your local competitors, look at your regional and national competitors. You know, you can even do searches online and look for companies and look for good examples of marketing. You know, look at their website content, their blog content, Google My Business, Instagram, Facebook, COVID-19 related stuff, and anything else. And then what you do is filter it and apply it to how it might help you. Next is things you can do now. Continue to nurture relationships. People want to hear from you, obviously. That includes not only current and past clients, but the other professionals you work with, your subs, your suppliers. The more, the stronger relationships are now, the more likely you'll head off problems in the future. As part of this too is ask how you can be of service. You know, if somebody needs help with something that you can help with, you know, that you have resources for, definitely ask them. It's, you know, people don't forget those things. And in doing so, you're going to minimize risk, and you're going to hopefully increase trust and strengthen those relationships. Okay, number 6 is really important. Most of us don't have enough reviews and testimonials, and we haven't taken it as seriously as we should. But consumers nowadays, I think it's like 80% of consumers value what they read online about somebody as much as what a friend says about, you know, when they get a referral to a business. So keep that in mind. You want to be not just found online, but you want to influence what people find about you. I remember years ago, people would say, oh, I'm not on Yelp. But it's like, well, yes, you are. People have been leaving reviews about you, even if you are not actively paying Yelp or looking for business from Yelp. So audit all of the review programs. You know, you can see all of them here. Capture the quantity, the average, and any details. What I like doing is actually writing doing screenshots and dropping them into a spreadsheet. Ben, I see you hopped on. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, question on this exact topic. Because there's so many avenues to go about, what are the 2 or 3 that you would advise, particularly in kind of the more remodelers construction world, that we should be focusing on?
Yeah, thank you. You know, the first one is Google My Business. You absolutely need to pay attention, because of course, Google My Business is the platform that affects how people find you online. That affects Google's algorithm. They look at both the quantity and the quality of reviews. And that's part of what they call your review profile. So absolutely look at your Google reviews. And I would say that you need to have, you know, you should be aiming for 10 to 15 or more. You know, most people seem to have, you know, a handful. Some have 10 or more. A couple of your competitors might have 30 or more. Obviously, by the way, the more projects you do, say you're, you know, an HVAC company, you've got, you know, I don't know how many clients in a month, you know, compared to, say, a home builder or, you know, a remodeling contractor, general contractor might have, you know, 10 or 15 a year. So don't get hung up on, you know, somebody having, you know, 400 or 30, but, you know, work to increasing yours. And part of that is you need to set up a program for soliciting more reviews. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, and then I got another great question to follow that. In terms of, you know, we've mentioned something which I wrote down for a question at the end about ROI. Do you find paying for Google ads or Yelp ads penciling out, in your opinion?
You know, in my opinion, I would stay away from Yelp ads, mostly because from almost everybody I've heard in the residential remodeling space, the leads that come through Yelp, and I would also put into that like Thumbtack and Angie's List. Typically, those leads are not the leads that are your ideal clients. Those are typically people who, well, more often than you'd like, are looking based on price, or they're looking for a quick, quick bid, which, they're expecting you to be able to provide them a bid. Well, you know that you have to get inside the home or really assess what is going on inside and what they're looking for. And so expectations in this bid process can be an issue for people. And, side effect from that, what I've seen is that people will actually leave a review for a company they never worked for just because they had a bad experience trying to get a bid. And, I've heard from people over the years, I contacted 3, and this is in Marin, contacted 3 contractors, and I only heard back from 1. God forbid one of those people leaves you a review because you weren't the one that responded to that request. So I would not pay for Yelp. I would not pay for, Angie's List, etc. But, I've seen that people are still getting some results from House. Some people are not, things have changed there. It depends if you're tracking and it makes sense and it's just a small part of your budget, continue with it. As far as paying for Google, by the way, changes like every other day. Things come up in my feed, and Google ads are different, or AdWords is different than advertising with Google My Business. Those two things are separate, but doing pay-per-click can absolutely make sense, but it's a long-term play. You should work with an agency to do that, and there are people who all they do is pay-per-click. But it can make sense. It does take some time to set up, and if you know about who you're going after and your market, it can make sense. But expect to be paying a fair amount for that. Okay, I'm going to get back to this, but thanks, Ben, for those, and keep the questions coming to Ben. So identify where you need to be more competitive. If you don't have enough house reviews, you can ask for a house review, but, give people the option. If you're paying for guild quality, I've worked with clients who use guild quality, and I think it's a good idea, but really only use that if you are actually looking to make changes in the way that you do business, like you want to improve how your teams are working, or you want to get feedback on the different people who are working on your projects. But if you're using those for customer testimonials and things like that, and to have 59 guild quality reviews, don't count on those for the reviews. They don't hold the weight, because people don't find those unless they go to, say, guild quality or your website. It might show up in a search, but it doesn't help you rank higher. And I'm afraid that, or what I've seen is that if you send somebody to leave you a review at the end of their project on guild quality, they're not going to leave you a review on House or Google My Business. So, okay. Key thing here too is to respond to new reviews on Google My Business, as well as other platforms. But Google My Business, also part of the way that they rank you is they look at your responses to reviews. So that's part of that routine I talked about. Just put it on your calendar once a week. Check Google My Business, see if you have any reviews or anything else that needs to be addressed. And I know that time is going really quickly, so I'm going to actually just jump ahead there and skip that last one. I need to step it up. So create a photo plan. This is something you can do now. Think about find what you've got, what you need, how you're going to use them, and how you can leverage them in the future. Wrap your head around it. Get them all in one place. And sometimes it's not easy. Another thing you can do now is to write a case study. Basically, what's the story? What's the problem that you solved for a client? And what you do is you basically pull these different elements, together, photos and interviews and comments from, the pros who worked on the project, or the client themselves. You actually create a marketing asset. It's something that you can post to your website, post to social media. And a key thing is that you can share it with somebody that is having that same problem, and it demonstrates how you actually solved somebody else's problem, and it helps really get them closer to working with you. We talked about measuring your marketing, KPIs, key performance indices. If you don't measure, you can't assess fully what to do with your marketing. So here's some things that you should do. Track what matters most, to your bottom line. What are those big things that you're paying for that you're not sure if they're working? Figure out how to measure those. And then the key thing is to tie what you're measuring to your goals, and make sure your marketing ties to those goals, because you might be doing things that don't affect getting you to the place where you say want to add another crew, or you want to get into different types of projects. So pay attention to what your goals are and how you're spending your money. Okay, now here are 7 things to do if you have some strategy in place. First of all, if you haven't developed a marketing strategy, do that. And then if you have, you need to revisit your strategy, reassess your personas. What are those new concerns because of the pandemic that have are affecting your ideal clients? If you say that you're working with older people who want to stay in their homes, well, right now when things are pretty dangerous right now, those people might, that persona, that type of client might be more resistant to having you in their home, or they may need to know, about every single thing you're doing to keep the project safe. So pay attention to those, and then again, be intentional, or it's about communication and building trust. So, okay, number 3 is, okay, there we go. Review your website. I like to think with this is that everything's up for grabs. Look at all the content on your website, and is it attracting your ideal client? And does it convert? Does it get them to take that next step to working with you? How old is your site? I mean, seriously, if you have a site that's, I hate to say it, 4 or 5 years old, chances are you need to, chances are pretty good if it's 6 or more years old, you need to get a new website. It's not just keeping it updated, but what's happening is that, we're getting more sophisticated. People are seeing, they know what a new website looks like. And remember to make your website reflect your, what makes you different. Key thing is, we talked about adding a COVID-19 page, and this is one that I firmly believe in. You have to have somebody inside your company be able to edit your website. And I'm not talking about like putting a new banner on the homepage, but I am talking about adding a COVID-19 page. If you don't know how to do that, you're less likely to be making edits. So next is to audit your website with your web developer. There are things that I don't think you need to know how to do, but make sure that they know, that they're addressing these with you, including how it's optimized for SEO, your keywords, your title tags, any broken links, alt tags, is your site secure with the HTTPS? You need to cover those things. And by the way, at the end, I have an offer about auditing all of this that I'll share with you. Number 5, advertising online. Ben asked about that already. And so I talked about a little bit about it. There are Google ads, you can do Bing ads, Facebook. By the way, Bing ads, most of us are not using Bing, but apparently Bing and, Bing is a really good place to be advertising. There's some good opportunities there. Facebook, who knows right now? Facebook people pulled their ads from Facebook, but key thing is here, I know it could be tempting to do this yourself, but in my opinion, and I love DIY marketing, I suggest hiring experts. And remember that this is something that takes time to build. It may take 3 to 6 months to really see some results. And by the time you kind of tweak things to get it going. Okay, number 6 is pivoting. We talked about don't be everything to everybody. No job too big or too small. However, in talking to remodelers and GCs prior to doing these webinars, I found in talking to a couple of them that they're actually taking on smaller projects, but they're reaching out to past clients. and looking for referrals for small projects, but they're not truly like changing their website to say we do small things and big things. But they're looking, when your timelines go crazy and sideways, you want to make sure that you can fill the time of your crews, and small projects are a great way to do that. One more thing, Ben, you may have to go outside of the area that you normally do business in, broaden that geography a bit. But yeah, so think about pivoting. Yes, Ben.
What about LinkedIn? What's your thought on LinkedIn and remodelers?
You know, I don't mention LinkedIn in here because it's not something that I think is in the top area here. But I love LinkedIn, and I believe that all remodeling contractors, every MBA member, everybody on this call needs to be active on LinkedIn, and your staff should be there, connect with people. Obviously, the people who are doing projects are on LinkedIn because they're professionals, and you can first connect, build relationships, and then you can post articles, if you write a case study. So LinkedIn is a really powerful tool. But before I would recommend somebody spending a ton of time expecting leads to come through LinkedIn, I would look at the other things first. Okay, moving on to number 7, which is, drum roll, please. Email and list building. You need to have something on your website that can collect leads. Join our mailing list. You can use those to have, an email campaign that you send out. You can get very sophisticated about it, or it could be just a monthly or quarterly newsletter. But the key thing is to start building your list. And you probably, even if you don't have a formal list, you have people who would be happy to hear from you. And so think about emailing as a tool. It still is one of the best ROIs for the investment. So as I'm starting to wrap up here, I want you to avoid thinking in certain ways. Avoid thinking that there is a single marketing pill. If you only do this, everything will be taken care of. Sadly, that's not the case, but also it's an opportunity because it's not the case. There are a lot of things that you can do that are very small that all contribute to your to strong marketing. We talked about this already. Avoid paying for lead generation, because one of the key things is that if you stop paying for, say, house, and you pull the plug on that, you don't get any more leads and you're left with nothing. I mean, yes, you've got some projects that you did, but what you don't have is you don't have a program that you built up. So say you actually do some online advertising, it kind of becomes an asset. What you learn with that, with the pay-per-click folks, and you hone it and perfect it, that becomes something that pays dividends if you continue to advertise. Or, for example, updating the content on your website, that's you pay for that, or marketing strategy, and then you're able to own that going forward, and it continues to work for you. If you pull the plug on some of that lead gen, once you pull it, it's gone. And I want you to avoid thinking that you have to do this with an agency or you have to pay somebody to do all this. You can pay somebody to do parts of it, but there's a lot of this that you can do on your own. And I want you, hopefully you've learned some of that today. So in conclusion, I want you to take action. I don't want you to just be that deer in the headlights. The information we have is imperfect, but it's the information that we have. And so don't wait for something to have all the information. You do need to set your budget, but you need to be willing to take action and move forward. I also want you to commit and invest in your marketing. And I look at marketing as, the budget as time and money. And it might also include somebody who's on your staff or hiring a part-time person. But I want you to invest in marketing. I also want you to develop that strategy, because that's going to set you up, like that Sun Tzu quote. You need to have that strategy in place to actually know what marketing is best for you. It's kind of like, you have the arrow and you shoot it, but if you don't have your strategy, you don't know where the target is. So I want you to have that target. I want you to understand what makes you different. And if you're a busy business owner, you probably should delegate it to somebody, some of the details. And finally, be flexible, stay nimble. We don't exactly know what's going to be happening. And so you need to be able to be flexible. So this is the recap of what I said at the beginning. I hope that you have now accepted that marketing is critical, and I want you to think critically about it, not just go, yeah, I'll do that. I want you to know how you can stand out, or how you can figure out how you can stand out from your competition and why that matters, and then, you know, make your marketing materials reflect that. And finally, you know, get ready. There's a lot of things that you can do and take advantage of, even in these uncertain times.